I will request to have attention just to have the linkages among several scholars in case of comparative literature. In 1816, a collection of French poems entitled Cours de littérature compare. Cours de littérature compare. Cours de littérature compare, in which the term comparative literature was mentioned in relation to teaching literature in French. Before this class, we got the idea the first time Matthew Arnold gave a lecture at Oxford University. There he mentioned the term. That was in 1857, but here 1816. So we can say that comparative literature starts with the term initiated by the French researcher, the French poems entitled Cours de littérature compare. And in that term, comparative literature was mentioned in relation to teaching literature in French. So they wanted to teach and read and write literature in terms of comparison, and for this reason they published this book in 1816. So it is generally agreed that such kind of series of French collection of poems, that is anthologies, used the term comparative literature at first in the history of teaching literature. So we see that comparative literature got its importance in the second half of 20th century or first half of 19th century, but here we see that from the very beginning of 19th century we see that in French anthologies they started teaching their poems in terms of comparative literature. So the history is started from the very beginning of 19th century, that is 1860. René Ouellec. After that, after French, René Ouellec, a Czech-American comparative literary critic, discussed the origin of the term comparative literature and notes that the title is unused and unexplained. We are getting so many explanations, we are getting so many perspectives of comparative literature, but this Czech-American critic said that actually what does comparative literature mean? The term itself is unexplained and unused. Who said? René Ouellec. He showed how the term came into use in 1920s and 1930s in France. So he also mentioned the previous reference, that is 1816, that means 1820s and 1830s, the comparative literature started its journey in terms of French literature, especially the French poetry or collection of poems, that is anthologies. So René Ouellec also mentioned, but he said that the term itself is very complex and unexplained.
Sir, anthology
Collection of poems. René Ouellec suggested that the German version of the term, so from France then we went to German. French School of Comparative Literature, German School of Comparative Literature will be different. So next time René Ouellec suggests and moved us to German. German version of the term Vergleichende literature Chiste, German word. Okay, so you have to write it, don't try to pronounce it. First appeared in Maurice Carrier's book in 1854. So René Ouellec in France, comparative literature term used in 1816, and in German we have seen they have mentioned the term in 1854. However, the earliest English usage attributed to Matthew Arnold, who referred the term as in plural as comparative literatures. Comparative literatures in a letter in 1848. So 1848, 1854 and also 1816. 1816, that is the French version of the term, that is comparative literature. Next in 1854, that is the German version. But René Wellig mentioned that actually the idea, that is Matthew Arnold mentioned the term comparative literature in a letter before his speech at Oxford University, and that happened in 1848. Actually the idea will come with several issues. Okay, so who is the first person who mentioned the term? Here we see that Matthew Arnold also mentioned the term in a letter, and that was in 1848. Whatever might be the name of the term in different countries and languages. So in German they set comparative literature in different terms. In France they set in different terms, and in England by Matthew Arnold they set it in different terms. So there might have different identification or names or terms relating to comparative literature. In terms of different countries and languages, it is obvious that concept of comparative literature was evolved in relation to more than one literature. It's very transparent, like a glass. More than one literature in Europe and in the early years of 19th century. So from the concept of Europe, that means France, German and England, we see that the idea of comparative literature that would be dealing with more than one literature, and that it be happening in the early years of 19th century. So that is the history. Initially they started talking about the term that is comparative literature. It seems that the term comparative literature is derived from a methodological process. Methodology, okay. The ways, methodological process applicable in science, in which comparison and contrast are being used as a means of confirming a hypothesis. Hypothesis means first time a research start with an imagination or hypothesis that this can be. The combination of this and this will give you a result that is that. Okay, that is the hypothesis. And whenever the hypothesis will be tested, that is called, after the testing, after the research, গবেষণার পরে সেটা হয় কিনা. So the comparative literature first started its journey as a hypothesis testing in science, not in literature. In this regard, we see another critic, Philarete Schall. Pronunciation is slash mark will be identifying the pronunciation. You know, phonetics and phonology also. So this is not Chelsea, it is Schall. Schall, Philarete or Philarete Schall, a French critic and man of letters. In his inaugural letters in Athens, entitled Literature Intranger Compare. Literature Intranger Compare. Again in France, he put that term. What is the term? Literature Intranger Compare. Whenever you will be writing this term, you have to write the exact way the pronunciation it is given in this slide or in the book. Okay? That means foreign literature compare. Try to locate the object of study of comparative literature in the following manner. So next time we said that in French anthologies we got the term comparative literature in 1816. And then the French critic, he actually elaborated the term, the French critic, Philarete Schall. So let us calculate the influence of thought. So he gave a different definition. Previously we got that comparative literature will be comparing a literature, very broad definition. But Schall said that let us calculate the influence of thought upon thought. Thought upon thought. It means that whenever if you are a critic, if you are a writer, if you are a painter, if you are an artist, whatever may be, your creative inspiration will be inspired by an influence, or just like a spontaneous overflow of mind. That means you will be inspired with some thought, thinking, or ideology. Some artist will be painting their art, and there he will always be showing the happiest moment of the people. Some artist will be painting the sadness of human civilization. Some artist will be painting on the nature. Okay, so why did that artist started painting nature? There was a thought behind his creation. In the same way, if you write a literature, a piece of literature, in pessimistic perspectives, some thought inspired you, some thinking inspired you, some influences influenced you. So Charles said that we have to calculate the influence of thought upon thought. The manner in which people are mutually changed. If you are inspired, naturally the spontaneous overflow of mind. The writer, naturally they go somewhere else. Why they go somewhere else? Because in isolation they had been getting signal in isolation, and they will be inspired in something else, and they will be writing a novel, poem, or something else. So some influence of thought is the behind story of every creation. It might be a literature, it might be an art, it might be a poem, it might be any part of human sciences. That shall mention that we have to calculate the influence of thought upon thought. So people will mutually be changed when he or she will be inspired with an thought. We can give that thought definition in a different way. If anybody is influenced by an ideology, then based on that ideology the writer will be writing. Have you got the point? আপনি যাই লেখেন না কেন, আপনি যদি একজন ক্রিয়েটিভ রাইটার হন, আপনি যা ছবি আঁকেন না কেন, আপনি যদি একটা আর্টিস্ট হন, প্রত্যেক ক্রিয়েটিভ ক্রিয়েশনের পিছনে একটা ইনফ্লুয়েন্স থাকে, এবং সেই ইনফ্লুয়েন্সটা এখানে বলা হচ্ছে থট। দ্যাট মাইট বি ইডিওলজি, দ্যাট মাইট বি দ্য ইডিওলজি অফ সিভিলাইজেশন, দ্যাট মাইট বি something else that he will be inspired. Shall mention that in every case we have to calculate the thought process, that which thought or which ideology influence what literature. So we had been discussing the structure of comparative literature. একটা লিটারেচারের সাথে আরেকটা লিটারেচারের কোনভাবে কম্পেয়ার করা যায়, either thematically or stylistically. Okay, Homer's Iliad and Ulysses. Okay, so one epic, another epic, one drama, another drama. So we before this class we had the idea that we can compare literature in two ways, thematically and also stylistically, and for the cause of time being. But this shall definition that we have to think about the influence of thought. You have written a poem, and that poem, who inspired that thought? Most probably you have got or you have read a similar kind of poem in from another country or another literature that he wanted to mention indirectly. Who? Shah. So for such kind of ideology and thought, some writers' mentality will mutually be changed, and what else of them was given, and what else of them have received. Okay, so Voltaire and Rousseau, these two men, they come up with a slogan, only 3 words in their slogan: equality, fraternity, and liberty. With these 2 words, what is the historical background? At that time, Louis XIV was the king, and the king had been enjoying tremendous happiness. But on the contrary, the general people, they are not getting food, they are not getting proper shelter, and they didn't have the freedom of their speech. So these two men, Voltaire and Rousseau, they came up with that three words: equality, liberty, and fraternity. With that three words, everybody was inspired, and with that equality, fraternity, and liberty, got a great sense in civilization that is called Romanticism. Bastille Fort was demolished, and everybody come over. So with that simple three words, equality and fraternity and liberty, everywhere in this world, every people started writing on the basis of equality, fraternity, and liberty. Writers started to write poems based on the same theme: equality, fraternity, and liberty. So in such a way, one ideology, one piece of literature, one creation can influence other writer, and also it can influence the whole civilizations. Schall wanted to mention that we have to identify that kind of influence in literature. And what else of them has given, that means how much of the influence they have given, and how much of them and what else of them has received. So Voltaire and Rousseau said that equality, fraternity, and liberty, they said three core words. So how much or how many words you have taken? You can take equality, and on the basis of equality you can write something. On the basis of fraternity you can write something. So what else that is given, and what else of them was received? So let us calculate the effect of the perpetual exchange upon the individual nationalities. So one ideology can influence another national or nationalities. Okay. In the same way, vice versa. Some nations' attitude. We know that Japanese are very much hospitable. So their hospitality can influence other nations, and they can also, and other European countries, they might be so much in other perspectives. So their perspectives can also influence the other nation. So that is Schall comment that we have to think about the influence of thought upon thought. How many influence was created by an ideology, and how many of the influence was taken by the writer or by other literary piece. Okay. For example, we have given the example of Japan, that they are hospitable. Okay. We Bengalis are also hospitable, isn't it? So that can be the influence for the other nation. The spirit of the northern part of France. So who said that Schall is a French critic? He talked about the thing of influence of thought. Thought means, that means influence of an ideology or something else. The spirit of northern part in France was isolated for a long time. But finally we have observed that this very northern part allowed itself to be influenced and penetrated the spirit of southern part of France. So northern part was isolated, but that part was influenced by the southern part, and vice versa. But for a long time that was isolated. What I say, that our nationality will have some ideology, some thinking. In the same way, a person or the great scholar will have some ideology or thinking. And inspired by such kind of ideology and thinking, writer, artist will be creating their literature. So Schall, in case of comparative literature, he asked to think about the influence of thought or influence of an ideology. And there is an example that the northern part of France, for many time that was isolated, but next time that northern part itself to be influenced the southern part, and southern part to be influenced the northern part. So if you put that scenario, that would be the common scenario for other parts of this globe in terms of comparative literature. Secondly, England was influenced by the magnetic attraction of France. Not only, so first time we have said that northern part was influenced by the southern part of France, but England itself was influenced by France. Not only the France country, their ideology. What is their ideology? What is their thinking in terms of their nationality? Okay, so that was also, so England was also influenced by France and vice versa. And thirdly, through the ebbs and flows of the political history of Europe, we have observed that each part of Europe one time dominated its sister state and at another time submitted to them. What does it mean? In European countries, 36 countries, in European continent more than 36 countries are there. এই দেশগুলোর মধ্যে আমরা দেখেছি যে কোনো সময় ইউরোপের একটা দেশ আরেকটা দেশকে দখল করে নিয়েছে, আবার যে দেশটাকে দখল করে নিয়েছিল ওই দেশটা আবার উল্টো আরেকজনকে দখল করে নিয়েছে। That is the ebbs and flow of the political history of Europe. That means Europe always had been trying to capture the ruling power of a country and vice versa. And that country was also trying to capture the ruling power of another country. That is the political situation of Europe. Okay. And fourthly, the theological Germany. German nationalist country is based on theology. Theology, that means the idea or the thinking or activities on religion. Artistic Italy, the art, the architecture, the monument, the history, the legacy, the so many things. Especially Italy is famous for their artistic creation. So Italy is famous art. Italy is famous for their art. Artistic Italy, energetic France. So France, always a country, a mighty country, politically powerful country, and they invaded many parts of this world. So this powerful country was also is their ideology, also their identity, whose identity the France can be called energetic France. Okay, and Catholic Spain. Spain, okay, we know several terms of Christianity, especially Spain is dominated by Christianity, a terms of Christianity that is Catholicism. And the Protestant England, in many parts we see that the people of England, they believe in not Catholicism, they believe in Protestantism, and influence the other European countries in many different ways. So theology, artistic thing, energetic perspectives, and religious perspectives. Everything of a country can influence the other nation. Okay. Shall mention that. Shall put us in a different scenario of comparative literature. He talked about not the comparison, he talked about the influence of thought. What type of thought? We can give it a different definition of thought, that is the ideology. What is the ideology of Italy? They are very much artistic. What is the ideology of France? They are very much mighty. And what is the ideology of Spain? They are very much religious, Catholicism. Okay, so such kind of thought process and ideology inspired the other country. Shall asked us to compare that thought process or that influence. So artistic Italy will have their power of art. He also said that how much of the influence you will be taken from that artistic Italy, it's up to you. Okay, but there is an influence. Fifthly, William Shakespeare's profound analysis was duly possible for the tremendous influence of the warm shades of the southern part of France. William Shakespeare has written 38 dramas, 154 sonnets. And in case of the writing, the profound contribution, William Shakespeare's profound contribution to literary history, and he is called the greatest poet of English literature. Shaw said that William Shakespeare was tremendously influenced by France. France, that means France, their mighty country and their the southern part, especially not the northern part, the southern part of France, William Shakespeare was influenced. So what we say, that we can say that many of William Shakespeare dramas, we will see that there is an influence of the southern French history, mythology, anthology and others. Okay. Have you got the linkage between influence and literature? A bit? Okay. So that means William Shakespeare was influenced by the southern part of France, and he wrote so many writings. So in case of literature, of course, there is a thing that can be called influence. You have got the point? Sixthly, Milton's Catholic belief. John Milton, writer of Paradise Lost and Paradise Regained. Okay. And he was the poet laureate of Oliver the Cromwell. Oliver the Cromwell in the history of England was the first Puritan government in England. And at the time, theater was banned. Anybody will not go to theater. Everything was burned. And at that time, Milton was the poet laureate of Oliver Cromwell. Oliver Cromwell beheaded Charles I. Oliver Cromwell Charles I মাথা কেটে দিয়ে ক্ষমতা এসেছিলেন, and that Oliver Cromwell himself was beheaded in 1660 by Charles II. That means Charles I father. So this Catholic belief of Milton was added and embellished by the Roman and Italian spirit and influence. Okay. So Milton's Catholic belief was also adorned and embellished by the Roman and the Italian spirit. So how did Milton was inspired in his Catholicism? Here it is said that he was inspired by the Roman and Italian spirit of Catholicism. So the great writer William Shakespeare was influenced by the southern part of France, and next time John Milton was influenced by the Roman and Italian spirit of Catholicism and influences. Okay. So in such a way, one literature will be, or one country or nation will influence other. Finally, the attraction, not only the ideology and other things, attraction, the sympathies, the constant vibration of all this living, all this loving, exalted, melancholy and the reflected thoughts. So thought cannot simply be termed as ideology. That spirit can be called the living things, loving things, exalted melancholy and reflected thoughts. Some spontaneously means if you get the influence. Romanticism, how we have got the idea of romanticism, Italian Renaissance, and that influence is spontaneously influenced the whole world. You are very much romantic. What does it mean? That means you are very much romantic. Romanticism tells a different definition. The love of past, the love of imagination and the love of beauty. Romantic person is not that you will be an worshipper, or you will be dressing yourself well, suited, booted. You are not the romantic person. Romantic person who is this? Who will be the worshipper? Worshipper means আপনি পূজা করবেন কার? Worshipper of beauty, সৌন্দর্যের পূজারী. Worshipper of past and worshipper of imagination. That means you can have the imaginary power and you can go to have the chirping birds, okay? Birds of the nightingale. So you have the power to worship imagination. If you have the power of worshipping beauty, then that can be the romanticism. So the idea of romanticism influenced some whole world spontaneously. The people of the whole world, they took the romantic ideologies and ideals spontaneously. And one side. Another way, others become of study. Others what? Someone will be taking the influence spontaneously. Others, they will go for study. They will try to study Romanticism, and after studying Romanticism, after studying Michel Bakhtin, after studying Adam Smith, they have understood that yes, this is good. And after studying Adam Smith's economic theory, one can be influenced. So that influence can happen spontaneously in one hand, and another influence is that whenever anybody will go to study that text, then he can also be influenced. We don't know how William Shakespeare was influenced by the southern part, but we don't know how John Milton was influenced by Italy and Germany. But we know that this influence will work in two different ways. One is spontaneously, that means after Romanticism, after Renaissance, everywhere there was some tendency spontaneously. Every people of the world accepted that ideology and started to write and started to react on the basis of Romanticism and on the basis of Renaissance. And another thing is that for the purpose of study, if anybody goes to study their perspectives of thought, we will be. So Shal is speaking about the influence of thought, influence of some loving things, influence of some exalted things, just like Renaissance, Romanticism, materialism, scientific development. So that influence can happen in two different ways, spontaneously and also for the cause of study. Okay, all submitting to influences. Anybody? Okay. You come exactly in the class. You follow a different lifestyle. You follow a different fooding habit. Everybody. And everybody, in case of comparative literature, it is said, Shal said that in everybody's life, everybody is influenced by someone else. You may be influenced by your parents or something else. So Shal said that there is the influence. All submitting to influences, which they accept like gifts. So the artistic Italy. So if you visit Madame Tussauds, if you visit art gallery of European countries, if you visit Mona Lisa, okay, so you will be influenced, and that influence, Shal said that it is like the gift you will be expecting, and after getting some inspiration, that inspiration accept like a gift, and all in turn emitting new unforeseeable influence in the future. Look here, Madam ফ্রান্সের যে মিউজিয়ামে লুভ মিউজিয়াম, সেই লুভ মিউজিয়ামে মোনালিসা ছবিটা আছে। যদি বলা হয় যে আসলে যে ছবিটা ওখানে কোনটা অরিজিনাল, ফ্রান্সের কোন মিউজিয়ামে মোনালিসা ছবিটা আছে? লুভ মিউজিয়াম। যদি বলা হয় যে যে ছবিটা টাঙানো আছে এটা আসলে অরিজিনাল না, কারণ অরিজিনালটা থাকলে অনেকে চুরি করে দেয়। In case of comparative literature, it is said that if anybody goes to visit Mona Lisa, Mona Lisa will be his or her inspiration. What type of inspiration? Just like a gift. We see that Rabindranath Tagore পড়েছিলেন ইউনিভার্সিটিতে, তার নজরুলও তার, কিন্তু তার কবিতা কত পরিমাণে যে পিএইচডি ডিগ্রি হয়েছে নজরুলের কবিতায়, রবীন্দ্রনাথের কবিতায় বা লেখায়, তারা ইন্সপায়ার্ড। And if you go over there to watch Mona Lisa, and that Mona Lisa can be an inspiration of your creative thinking. And after getting inspiration with that Mona Lisa picture, next time that inspiration will be expressed in future. Just like William Shakespeare was inspired by the southern part of France, and next time William Shakespeare's writing inspired the successive writers. That is the new case of influence in comparative literature, and that influence can be called a gift. The word influence in the previous slide gets recognition as an important characteristics of comparative literature. Actually, whenever you will be whenever you will be going to discuss the French School of Comparative Literature, then you have to talk about influence. And most probably you have heard, যারা ঘুমাচ্ছেন তারা বাদ দিয়ে, you have heard and you have learned what is influence. So the word influence in the previous slide gets recognition as an important characteristics of comparative literature. So in our previous class we have learned that is comparative literature had been comparing literature either thematically and stylistically, but here we have got another key point of comparative literature. What is the key point? That is the influence. That means the influence a national ideology or a national thought can influence other and vice versa. Others' national spirit or ideology can influence other. So Charles refers also to the spirit of a nation or of a people who suggest how spirit may have influenced another writer in another culture. So if we visit Mona Lisa from Bangladesh, you will not be inspired. It's not like that. So a great art, a great ideology can influence the writer of any country of this world or any culture of this world. So Charles paints an idealistic picture of international literary harmony. International literary harmony through the influence. যদি একটা সাহিত্যের দ্বারা বিশ্বের যে কোনো মানুষ প্রভাবান্বিত হতে পারে, তাহলে তো আর লিটারারি পিচ হচ্ছে কোনো একটা দেশের হলো কোনো সম্পদ না, এটা হলো আসলে ওয়ার্ল্ডের সম্পদ. So through the comparative literature, Saul mentioned that actually idealistic picture of international literary harmony. There will be a linkage among all literature of this world. And that linkage can be thematically, linkage can be stylistically, and the third portion we have learned that linkage can be on the basis of influence. It suggests that historical reality of nation to nation is different, but the mutuality of the influence and the connections are same. History of country is different, but the mutuality, that means the mutual linkage, the mutual affinity. Linkage means the similarity, and affinity means the close relation between literature and connection that is obvious according to Schall. And Schall put focus on influence, and that is the basic tenets of French School of Comparative Literature, and how influence can be taken as a gift, and that influence can influence the other writer, literature and culture. Thus the term comparative literature was first originated in France. Okay? Because it started in 1816 by the comment of some French critic, and we can also say that French thought of comparative literature is mainly pinpoints different kinds of influences that are derived from culture. So influence will, from where it will be getting that influence. Influence can come out from culture, from religion, from sociology, from anthropology, art and architecture, warfare and also friendship. Okay. So France is the first country who originated the term comparative literature, and French School of Comparative Literature also initiated the idea of influence, and that influence derives from culture, religion, sociology, anthropology, art, architecture, warfare and friendship. Even any person can be influenced. The mighty expenditure of Alexander the Great, isn't it? So warfare sometimes can be a part of influence, isn't it? So that is culture and national. So in this part, actually there are some other slides, but we are not supposed to. So let's conclude in such a way, that is, the term comparative literature came into existence with the idea of some French critic, and that was in the first half of 19th century. And what did French School of Comparative Literature say? The French School of Comparative Literature will be dealing about the influence, And from where we will be getting the influence? Just for an example, that William Shakespeare was influenced by the southern part of France, and John Milton was influenced by Italy and German. In the same way, so influence, from where influence will come? Influence will come from culture, religion, sociology, anthropology, art, architecture. Question might come. Okay, question might come in such a way that French School of Comparative Literature. If it is so, that if you are in a position to write that the French School of Comparative Literature, what you have to write? You have to write the things that I have told you in this class. Okay. So, thank you for attending the class.